Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. I'm Charles Payne, in for Glenn. We're counting down the last days of the year, and we're looking forward to next year. Will the economy be any better? Will the government learn to stay out of business? And will you be safer? Not sure? Let's go. Hello, America. Do any of these sentences sound familiar? We're trying to bail out our people, or we're trying to restore the hope and confidence that they had. And we're trying to keep kids in school. And of course, we're trying to put food on their tables. These sentences tell us why Americans have to be afraid of this administration and government. It's an extension of the notion that they know better than we do, so they're obligated to shepherd us like little children running across the street in Lower Manhattan. You know, in Lower Manhattan, some of the schools recently came under fire for using leashes to control large classes of kids, particularly pre-K kids. Now, I'm not sure how that issue was resolved. I gotta be honest, it looked a little inhuman to see these tots bouncing around chained together, even though they might have been safer. But those are pre-K kids, not adults. The rules, regulations, and endless guilt trip combined with limited opportunities and higher taxes serve to keep adult Americans on a leash. In the process, our dreams are yanked back and eventually recede so far into the back of our minds, we forget we have them anymore. You don't restore confidence by giving someone a welfare check. People that have worked all their lives don't become giddy over extensions of unemployment benefits. The extension of such benefits sends several messages, including, things aren't getting better. Oh, but let the government put food on your table and you can pay us back later by keeping us in office. For example, Charlie Rangel is an old-time New York liberal who still hasn't seen the destructive nature of big government replacing the innate skills and desire that God blessed us all with at conception. No, Representative Rangel, we do not want the government to put food on our table. Paying teachers more money has nothing to do with keeping kids in school. It's the cities with the largest percentage of welfare recipients that are actually witnessing the biggest spikes in student dropouts. When is this message going to sink through? People make things happen because they have this funny little quirk commonly known as survival instincts. We're born with it. The spirit of this nation actually takes those instincts to a different level. While a lot of people are sitting around their kitchen tables right now wondering how they will pay their bills, many are actually trying to figure out how to make a better mousetrap. It's American to think about being extraordinary. As for confidence, well, that's going to come back with trust. And that's only going to happen with all the gimmicks, the sales jobs, and the shams are dumped. We are being coddled in such a way that it's actually stifling our ability to rip and roar as a country. You know, we show our children confidence when we take the training wheels off. If we can keep Charlie Rangel and company from taking our tax dollars and feathering the bed of union members, trust will begin to ease back. If we can stop pledging billions of dollars to the rest of the world to push ideas Americans don't even agree with, trust will ease back. If the president puts his skin into the game and he understands that he can't really give himself a B- when the economy is skimming along at an F-, the government needs to shut up, get out of the way, and stop taking our hard-earned money. More importantly, stop selling the notion that we can't do it on our own. The country must resist attempts to be this culture that's being created right now of defeat and dependency. We need to believe that within our greatest fears lies our greatest opportunities. Now, we don't want to be sold on the idea that a paved road of government handouts is a better option than that scary, uncharted road that is surely fraught with dangers and failures, highs and lows, but also an empowerment that makes life wonderful. A line from one of my favorite poems goes, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. Robert Frost. Will the government get out of the way and let private industry work in 2010? Here to discuss, John Tamny, editor of Real Clear Markets, Stephen Sproul, staff writer for the National Review, and my old friend Peter Schiff, president of Euro Pacific Capital and author of Crash Proof 2.0, How to Profit from the Economic Collapse. Peter, is the government going to get out the way and let the free markets work?
I sure hope they would, but it doesn't look like they will. You know, the problem is we're in a serious economic, ditch here. And we're not going to get out of it if the government keeps digging it deeper. We need the government to get out of the economy, to get out of the way, and stop just diverting resources. The government doesn't have any resources. It has to take them from the private sector in order to give them back to us. And when it does that, it undermines our economy. It makes us less productive and less competitive.
But you know, John, the interesting thing about all of this is that we keep hearing the president take these victory laps, right? You know, the GDP is up, unemployment is down, everything we're doing is working, it's working, so let's do more. How do we fight that? How do we resist that? Do we resist that, or should we?
I think we should definitely resist it. I think we need to get back to first principles. There's nothing in the Constitution that empowers the federal government to oversee economic growth. And so in that sense, I very much agree with Peter here. The government has no resources of its own, and so we need to stop empowering it by virtue of it taking money from the private sector in order to give it back. Economic depressions are a misnomer. They cannot occur if government is doing very little, and if the government would just get out of the way, the economy would be fine.
But let's get Stephen in here, though. Stephen, where do you see all of this going? Because you know, I hear a lot of people who know better, particularly professionals on Wall Street and other places, but it still seems to be falling on a deaf ear in Washington.
It absolutely is. And to get back to what you said in your opening monologue, nothing better embodies that we know better than you do what's best for you than the individual mandate in the health care bill that Congress unfortunately looks set to pass. I mean, this is going around and telling every American citizen that regardless of whether or not, according to their own cost-benefit analysis, it makes sense for them to have health insurance, which, by the way, is going to be more expensive thanks to the regulations in this bill, you have to have it. You have to have it or pay a fine. The IRS will be determining whether or not your health insurance plan is up to the government standards. And so, yeah, they're basically telling you, we know better what's good for you than you do, and we say that you have to have health insurance.
But you know, Peter, the thing is, though, is every time someone in the administration speaks, they speak from the same hymn sheet, and the first thing they say, hey, in January we were losing over 700,000 jobs a month. Now we're on a cusp of creating jobs. We created the jobs, as if the government did that.
Yeah, plus, you know, you also have to look at the difference between productive jobs and make work. I mean, just because we have more jobs in the government or more jobs in the service sector right now doesn't mean that our economy is better off. We're still losing the most productive jobs we have. We're shedding manufacturing jobs at an alarming rate. And, you know, just because the GDP is going up, it doesn't mean the economy is getting better. You have to look at why it's going up. Right now, GDP is rising because consumers are spending borrowed money and the government is spending borrowed money. And all we're doing is digging ourselves into a deeper hole. We're in more debt now than we were before the crisis began.
What's the danger of that?
Well, the danger is, in order to get out of this mess, we don't have enough savings in this country. We don't have enough production, enough manufacturing, and enough investment. That's what we need to do. We can't spend our way out of this crisis. We can't borrow our way out of this crisis. We have to produce and work our way out of it, and we can't do that with the government interfering in the economy.
So essentially what you're saying, though, Peter, is we have to go through a certain amount of pain as a nation. We have to suck it up as a nation and before we can really come out of this the right way.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, based on what we're doing now, we're going to have to suck up a lot more pain over a much longer period of time because the government refuses to allow the free market to function.
You know, John, I read where you actually wrote that you thought a lower GDP was actually a better sign for the economy. Explain that to me.
Well, the reason for that is what drove down the revised GDP number was a higher, quote, trade deficit. Now, to me, a trade deficit is a misnomer. They don't exist. But what they do signify in economic terms is that foreigners are complementing us with imports, not to mention that they are complementing us with increased foreign investment in U.S. companies. And so the higher trade deficit drove down GDP. And I would just add one other thing to this. I have a problem with this notion that we need to experience pain to get back on track. Implicit there is that the government propping up things that were bad for the economy is somehow helping us. I think it would be very cleansing and good for the economy to let failed businesses fail, to get rid of Fannie and Freddie, and a lot of these things bringing down the economy.
But John, you would agree also that people who worked at those failed businesses would experience a certain amount of pain. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I know Ronald Reagan and Paul Volcker took that route, and initially their popularity went down the tubes, and America did experience a whole lot of pain before things got better.